6, 7, 8. Rock step, triple step, rock step, cha-cha-cha, rock step, cha-cha-cha.
Hi, my name is Kate, and my pronouns are they, them.
And my name is Lou, and my pronouns are they, them.
Just two they, thems talking about dance.
Dance and stuff. And we even have another person with us today. It's not just two they, thems today.
It's Yasmeen Zahar here. Yay, Yasmeen. Welcome.
Hello. Welcome. Thank you.
Yasmeen, awesome. Amazing. What are your pronouns, Yasmeen?
I use she, they pronouns.
She, they pronouns. So it's two they, thems and a she, they. I love that.
Talking about dance.
Perfect.
Amazing. Well, welcome, Yasmeen. I'm so glad you're here. Yasmeen, can you give us a little bit of background about like who you are, what your dance story is, just a little bit about it?
Yeah. I've been teaching dance here in Seattle for almost a couple years now, and started dancing maybe more studio styles in about 2018, and had always been kind of pulled to dance in a lot of forms, and was lucky to have lived in a few countries in Latin America and was kind of exposed to a lot of Latin dance styles through just friends and folks that I was meeting, and then started to kind of want to explore that and learn it in a more formalized way once I moved back to the US to kind of keep that connection to a lot of those places and a lot of those styles. And so I have been super fortunate to get to train both in the studio aspects of a lot of these dances and also just a lot of the cultural aspects, and just learning from a lot of folks whose families grew up with a lot of these dances, and just learning that perspective of it too.
Nice.
That's incredible. Yeah, we have this list of places that you've trained that's so long. It's Colombia, the DR, Cuba, Peru, and the US. That's so many places. Can you tell us a little bit more about training all over the world and the kind of perspectives that's helped give you?
Yeah, a lot of those honestly were kind of unintentional or unplanned in the kind of way that I just happened to be living or studying in those places, and chose to kind of pursue a bit of dance training while I was there, especially Colombia, Medellin, Colombia specifically. I spent a lot of time in, and the dance community there in a lot of different styles is really incredible. And so getting to just learn different styles of dance and also just different perspectives of teaching was really amazing. I think having the opportunity to take class and train from a lot of instructors and places outside of the US is also just the way in which people teach dance, and just having it become a little bit more embodied from the jump, I think was a really great way for me to be starting my dance journey. So having that without, having so many second guesses or doubting myself, and just because that was just how people taught and how people danced, it was very, here's the thing, go for it, great, without breaking it down into so much detail. And so by the time I moved back to the US and having the way in which people taught shift a little bit, I think I already had the foundation of a lot of the movements and a lot of the styles in my body, so that then I could understand what they were saying about counts and techniques, but it wasn't the foundation in which I started to dance, which I think has really kind of helped me keep the essence of the dances, I think, more so than I would have if I had started dancing here first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like the experience I have with people that trained in an American studio is just so different from the dancers who just grew up with it. It's just totally different. So what was like your first entry to partner dance? Was it salsa or?
Yeah, it actually was salsa. I had kind of done it, again, more culturally for a few years, living in Peru, in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and then Colombia for a little bit. And so in Colombia took a couple studio versions of, salsa, which felt a bit different, and just really enjoyed it, and then also wanted to keep connected to it. So moving back into the US, searching for some salsa studios to kind of stay connected to that culture and that style of dance, which I really enjoyed. And so it was definitely salsa as the entryway. And then that kind of led to so many other things, as a lot of us have experienced, I think.
Yeah. What are the other forms do you dance, and what you specifically are a bachata dancer? Can you tell us more about what made you focus down and what you dance?
Yeah, I started in salsa, and as do kind of a lot of studios, especially, a few years back, we had a lot of salsa and bachata classes at the same time. A lot of that was modern bachata. There was a few instructors who were teaching Dominican or traditional bachata at the time, and I felt pretty immediately connected to that style of dance and that style of music. And I think similarly with Cuban salsa or casino, a pretty similar feeling, both of those being kind of the maybe more cultural versions or essences of those dance styles. And so the music has a lot more, it brings out a lot more emotion in me, I think, and lets my body just kind of move in the way that it wants to. And so I think Cuban salsa and traditional or Dominican bachata really called to me more in those moments. And I was really enjoying learning a lot of those kinds of dances and just getting to enjoy partner dance as just a community builder from the beginning. I think has just been really a nice way to try out a lot of these dances and just kind of see what your friends are doing, see what everybody else is learning, and just kind of keep learning and growing, especially when I was first starting.
That's so cool. Yeah. And like, I know I dance some modern bachata, and there's, there's such a big distinction. And I feel like that culturally right now is really coming to the forefront, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on sensual, modern, traditional, and why traditional is really important right now.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of conversation coming up recently on the different styles of bachata and the validity of different styles, and feeling, grounded in your bachata. And there's a lot of different takes and opinions. The history of bachata generally is a super interesting one, especially on the global scale. I think modern bachata really was the style of bachata that globalized bachata. And so that was many people's first entry point to the entire style of bachata. And so that was what people were dancing outside of the DR for a long time. And it wasn't until a lot later that folks from the DR were starting to teach it. People from outside were going and starting to learn how to teach it because it was such a cultural dance. It wasn't really meant to be structured in a studio and taught to the masses. And so it wasn't for a long time. And so the growth of modern bachata and then sensual bachata happened a lot bigger and a lot faster. And now we're kind of seeing a shift where more and more people are getting curious about the roots of the style and are going to train in it, or wanting to talk a little bit more openly and intentionally about it, which we haven't done in a long time. For a while, it was just kind of like, oh, we have bachata, which by that we mean modern bachata or sensual bachata, and then there's this like Dominican bachata on the side. Whereas now I think proponents of traditional bachata or Dominican bachata are saying that that's really the essence of where the entire genre comes from, and without it we wouldn't have any of these other styles. And so regardless of the style that you dance, it wouldn't exist without a lot of suffering and a lot of resilience that Dominicans in the 50s and 60s had to endure, because there was so much backlash when it was being created. It was banned, it was looked down upon. The people creating the music were looked down upon. And so their consistency to keep that genre alive is really what allowed, you know, a lot of Dominican immigrants into the US to create modern bachata, and folks coming from outside of the Dominican Republic creating sensual bachata and taking different parts of bachata music and the bachata dance from the Dominican Republic and kind of shifting it and moving it around to create new styles that are influenced and maybe inspired by parts of bachata in the Dominican Republic, but really take on their own meaning and their own version. And so now I think there's a bit more awareness and curiosity around the true roots of the dance, and especially because it's a very ever-present dance that still exists and is extremely popular and loved in the Dominican Republic. It's not a style that's, you know, been phased out and turned into something else, because these evolutions that we see of modern bachata or sensual bachata are evolutions that are happening outside of the Dominican Republic. They aren't the kind of natural evolution that we're seeing within the Dominican Republic, because there's also that happening. There's also, you know, the Dominican bachata from the 60s is a lot different than it was now. And so there's an evolution happening within the country itself. And I think just wanting to just share that with people and bring it to light a little bit more is something that I was super excited about. And I think we're just seeing a lot more of it as sensual bachata gets a lot more popular.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm not so much on the Latin side of the dance world, and I have danced bachata. I call it my like gateway drug into the dance world, because I started with bachata, and that's when I really fell in love with partner dance, because it's something I find it is very approachable. And I'm definitely way more familiar with social bachata. That's what's happening out there and stuff like that. So I'm even not even sure what exactly the main difference is between these different dance forms, and what about Dominican makes it the root of the dance. Can you tell me a little bit more about how the difference feels?
Yeah, I would love to. I love talking about this. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know the difference. Even bachata dancers, particularly modern and sensual dancers, don't even know the difference. Instructors don't even know the difference, because there hasn't been as much access to that information in the past as there has been now that we're, you know, going to visit, and just information is a lot more widely accessible. So some of the main differences I think about are with traditional bachata or Dominican bachata, you have the focus is on connecting with your partner, and it's way less turn pattern based. It's rooted in footwork, it's rooted in connection. When we talk about traditional bachata music, that also means essentially pure bachata music, that is the foundation of what bachata music is. It follows a pattern of, you know, we have 5 or 6 instruments that we have in every single bachata. We have different sections of the song, different energies and different rhythms. And all of those are present in traditional bachata songs or bachata songs. And so you always know that you'll have a bachata beat to dance to, which changes how you dance. You always have your bongos and your guira playing. And so you know that you can dance to the bachata beat for the entire song. It's a bit more connected, and you also get a lot more autonomy as both a lead and a follow, which I think is another reason why I really love the dance a lot and I love to teach it, because it's a lot more degendered, really. It's a
Great.
lot more just,
We love that.
we love it. We love that here. You're just connected sometimes by a hand or like one connection point, but you're both doing completely different things with your feet. You're both interpreting the
So
music. And that really throws people off because they look at a video and they're like, how do they know? Why are they doing completely different things? And it's just because they're interpreting the music super differently. And there isn't as much of this like lead follow, conversation of I'm going to lead a move and my follow is going to follow it. It's I'm going to lead some shapes. And in those shapes, you can really do whatever you want as a follow, which is the best. And then in modern and sensual, you have a lot more turn patterns and a lot more upper body movement. Modern bachata was coming out of New York City, and so you had hip hop and R&B at the same time. You had a lot of the salsa that was coming out of New York City at that time as well. And so a lot of the movements are influenced by a lot of salsa patterns, just on a like more lateral plane in modern bachata. So you're moving laterally while essentially doing a lot of salsa patterns. And then sensual bachata adds kind of this more like expansive body movement, which was inspired by and built by folks who wanted to connect to the breaks in the music. And the breaks in the music only started happening when a new style of bachata was created, modern bachata music, and other styles of bachata where breaks were present, because in traditional bachata we don't have really those breaks.
You have that long romantic interlude in the middle and stuff like that. Oh, that's fascinating.
And that's like that's when there's no bachata beat present, right? So they have to interpret with something else, like no place to step through or their basic.
Exactly.
That's such a good description you just gave.
Thanks.
I could download the information from you forever.
Yeah.
I love it. So have you danced much sensual?
I think I had a similar experience as many do, where you try sensual bachata and for a lot of people it's not comfortable. It's not, especially when you're first learning, especially if you're learning as a follow. It comes with a lot of safety issues. It comes with a lot of personal space issues. It comes with just a lot of like, what you're comfortable doing in your own body and what you're being asked to do. And when I first started dancing sensual, which really was more so on the social dance floor, it felt like a just lack of consent that I wasn't enjoying. And so I kind of rejected it early on, which I think is an experience of many people, especially as follows, who feel like they don't have a say in how they can move their bodies and they're being forced into movements. And so I think
Totally.
that happens to a lot of follows. And that was a big reason why I also started teaching traditional bachata, because I would hear so many follows particularly say that they started dancing bachata, particularly sensual, and then stopped because they had a bad experience on the dance floor and then never returned to any kind of bachata ever again. And so wanting to kind of offer a different style of bachata that gives you a lot more autonomy and control over how you're interpreting the music. I think now, as I've become a more confident dancer and a more confident lead and follow, I think I'm becoming more open to learning sensual again and kind of making it my own on the dance floor after having, some negative experiences when I first started with it. And so that's been kind of fun. And I kind of now, I think, learning more about traditional, I just see it as a different dance form. And so sometimes when I'm feeling really flowy in my body, I'll go for a few sensual dances. When I'm feeling more footwork heavy, I'll go for some traditional dances. It's really a lot about the kind of dance that I want to experience in that moment too.
Totally. Yeah. I think that those physical and emotional barriers to entry for sensual and like Brazilian zouk are like, if you're paying attention to your body even a little bit, they're really, they're intimidating.
Yeah, totally.
They really are. Yeah. That's so interesting.
Is there much sensual being danced in the DR? Is that a dumb question? I just, yeah.
No, it's not a dumb question at all. The way that it's kind of seen in the DR is exactly that. It's seen as like another dance that like
Totally different.
They'll go to the studio to learn, whereas they in the DR there's not so much distinction between the styles because their bachata is bachata, and then the other styles are something else. They're not within the bachata umbrella. So like the bachata anywhere is going to be traditional bachata. If you wanted to learn sensual, it'd be like, oh, let's learn this like cool new like foreign dance that was created outside of the DR
Yeah.
in a studio, but it's very much not a cultural part of the country.
Yeah. I love that question, Lou. Yeah, I had that curiosity as well. I want to transition just like a little bit over to like, why we wanted to interview you, aside from the fact that you're a star and you're amazing, but just like what you've created and are starting to carve out in the dance world in Seattle is relatively unique. And I want to ask about the gaps that you saw and like why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the choice to even start teaching really came out of wanting spaces to exist that didn't. So that was kind of what started my interest in teaching, as opposed to, I've reached a certain level of skill at this dance form, and so now I want to teach it. It was more, I don't see a lot of dance spaces that are accessible and queer friendly and open to the public for the first time, open to beginners, just so many different things that I wanted to see in the dance space. And I think that overlap with all of the accessibility of traditional bachata made a good pairing of, I can teach traditional bachata because it's a dance style that I love and is lacking here in Seattle, the instruction of it. And I can also teach it in a way that just creates spaces for people to feel good and feel joy and feel represented in a dance space where maybe they hadn't been before. And I think that was a huge part of why I even started teaching, was really just to be able to create those kinds of spaces that I would have wanted as a student.
Right. Like when you go to a bachata social for many years, it seemed like there were just no traditional songs even played. And of course, if there's no traditional music played, then there's not a market for traditional classes
no
to be
space
taught
for it.
There's
Yeah.
no culture or community built around it. And I know that that's just been a conversation among traditional dancers for a long time.
Totally. And even just the idea of whether or not, we're seeing a lot now where we have in congresses, particularly, we have traditional bachata rooms and we have sensual bachata rooms where it also just attracts a really different kind of dancer, a different kind of person, in the same way that we've started splitting salsa and bachata rooms pretty frequently at socials. I think it also makes a lot of sense to split it that way too, and just dance the style that you want to be dancing, because a lot of times in those bachata rooms, everyone would kind of be frustrated. You'd have sensual dancers be frustrated that they didn't know how to dance traditional, so everybody would sit out during those moments. And then you'd have traditional dancers who didn't really feel like it was worth it for them to go if they were only going to be able to dance a couple songs. And so now having those traditional focused spaces has allowed for those communities to be built and for people who just want to enjoy those dances and not have to like sit and wait, or for sensual dancers to be frustrated and leave the dance floor during a traditional song in the same way that they might during a salsa song if they don't know how to dance salsa, and kind of just creating spaces where, you know, if you want to be dancing a particular style, you can without feeling bad that you don't know the other one.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, maybe like say more about the representation piece too for like queer folks or people that just want to enjoy and be embodied, because I do feel like that's a takeaway from classes I've seen you teach.
Totally. And I think that's another reason why, particularly traditional bachata, but a lot of different other styles that I teach and the way that I teach them is, I think, having started my dance training from a lot of Latin American instructors from that kind of embodied way has helped me kind of find ways to teach that just remind people that it's fine. You know, whatever happens is fine. If you want to be, you know, the star dancer, you want, you know, super technical training, great. There's a lot of spaces for those that exist already. There isn't a lot of space, especially in the partner dancing world, especially in the Latin dance partner dancing world, where you can come and I'm going to be like, I don't really care if your foot is in the wrong place, especially because in traditional bachata, if your foot is in a weird place, your partner's doing something else anyway, so it's fine. And so you don't have to panic. I think people also just feel comfortable in class, which also helps them learn, as opposed to this kind of what I find an outdated structure or style of dance teaching, which we had seen a lot in kind of the like old school ways of teaching, where you were yelled at if you did something wrong and that's how you learned, as opposed to, you know, flipping that on its head, where it's, you know, my perspective is I want to make you feel the most comfortable you can in class so that you're actually receptive to information and not on edge and tense all class. And I just want to make you feel like we're all friends, which, you know, we are. Nobody's better than the other person. Just because I've studied a little bit of dance, maybe more than you have, doesn't mean that there's a hierarchy necessary, and just kind of making it feel like, you know, it's just a group of friends learning and nobody's going to get mad if you do something wrong, because there is so much less room for injury, I think, in traditional bachata, which also leaves a lot more freedom to let people mess up and play without the fear of harming somebody else.
Yeah.
And so there's less pressure.
Yeah, you're not making these like really intense shapes that just require so that you're like literally get to be two autonomous bodies that are just
Exactly.
enjoying a rhythm together, kind of a thing. Oh, that's so beautiful. Something that you said right at the beginning too, when you're traveling, you found that there was a lot more of embodiment happening, a lot more really connecting with rhythm and stuff like that going on. How do you feel like you bring that in here and like create that, make that a part of your space that you're making in Seattle that has a little bit less?
I think it's been hard. I think I've had to find the balance. I think when I first started teaching, I just wanted people to go for it and dance. And then there was like this kind of panic moment where people are like, we need some count, or like we need structure. And that's just like what they needed.
They're like, we're in Seattle. We need numbers.
Yeah, I always struggle with being like, I don't know counts. And then people are like, please give us numbers. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And so trying to find the balance too. And on top of like the embodied aspect, also the cultural aspect of not wanting to like studiofy a street dance.
Right.
In a way where it was like the point of the dance is to embody it. And I don't want to break that away from
Like that's like the best thing. As someone who dances a lot of Lindy Hop, which is also a street dance, it's like, yes, thank you. Like it's just meant to feel good in your body and to like enjoy people. Yeah, please say more.
and a lot of that is like we've had to do in classes a lot of exercises that are just like reminders of that, where like I just want you to jump around and like feel what happens in your body, and all of it is right, because that's way more important than you getting a turn pattern correct, but you're doing it with zero emotion or you're really stressed about it. I'd
Right.
rather you do basics and actually have the mental space freed up to listen to the music, as opposed to it being taken over by what is coming next and what pattern I want to lead. And just like trying to find more space to embody the dance and just absorb the music more. And so trying to find ways it's been hard here, and trying to kind of find the balance of counts and structure and play, and also just respect of the dance, and not wanting to shift the meaning and reason for its existence into a format that's, oh, you're doing it wrong, or oh, that's not right, and just wanting people to play.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I mean, they're all street dances if you pay attention, or even do a little bit of research. Salsa too, and they're dances of liberation and freedom and joy and embodiment. And so it's like it gets missed a lot. And it's
Totally.
really hard to balance that as a teacher, because you're also teaching people that may have never really moved their bodies before, so they want that.
Yeah, what difference do you feel in community that you create that like gives so much space for embodiment?
It's a good question. I think a lot of I try to validate as much as I can, especially for beginners, of like, this is awkward and this is weird, and that's really normal, and it's okay, and everybody feels weird in this moment. And just kind of allowing them to be vulnerable and be open about it, and not making it seem like they are supposed to get it perfectly the first time that they show up to class, which has happened a lot in a lot of dance classes. And then people never come back because they're like, they just made it seem like that was the easiest thing ever. Versus like, this is a weird thing. You're learning something new as an adult, and it's not going to be perfect, and it really doesn't matter right now. Like, you made it, and that's great. And I think also just like not really leaving room for doubt about anything to like creep in too much for students, like in terms of embodiment, but also in terms of like gender roles, in terms of ability, and really intentionally trying to create spaces where my goal would be that a student wouldn't even, be like, oh, well, I have this particular ability or disability and I can't do it. Whereas I just want to create a space where we're talking about it so much and so on the same page that they already know what they have access to and what they can do. And it doesn't have to feel like a modification every time, or it doesn't have to feel like you're the exception to the rule if you're choosing to lead or follow in a role that's, opposite the stereotypical gender roles, whereas it's just those don't even exist. And so that's just like creating a space where people don't even have to second guess themselves in any part of the class, I think is my goal, where it just like everything is allowed.
I love how you're saying that making this community something that's really embodied and some people can bring their authenticity to it really makes space for a lot of queerness. I think that's really cool. Can you talk a little bit more about how gender roles are in the spaces that you create?
Totally. And I think that that's such a like foundation of any space where it just leaves room is such the foundation of queer spaces anyway, where it's just there's just room for anybody and there isn't this hesitation to show up to a space or a doubt of if you'll feel included in that space. And just again, that same idea of just removing those doubts and being pretty clear and intentional that those spaces are for everyone. And I think when it comes to queerness and even just degendering roles, it's also kind of just the way that I teach just doesn't leave a lot of room for questioning yourself, really. Like, it's not like, oh, is this a thing that, like, maybe it's not like common if I'm leading, or like not even the hesitation where it's just like we're just going and you don't even have whatever feels like the role you want to do. Amazing, great. If you've never danced before, great. If you want to sit and watch, great. Because also talking about, you know, the whole spectrum that is queerness, it's also just any kind of barrier to acceptance in a particular space, and just trying to remove a lot of those barriers, whether that's a lot of people come in, you know, and their first class, they don't even really want to dance, or they don't even really want to like make physical contact with someone else, and not making people feel like that's even a requirement if they don't want to. And just, you could sit, you could do whatever, you know. I think I also try to embody some of those things myself to make it feel easy. If you want to take your shoes off, take your shoes off. I'll do class in socks, so you can do class in socks. I just make it feel like you're just hanging out. And if you want to come and learn technique and you want to ask questions, I got you. And also, if you want to like come just be around other queer people, amazing. That's also so empowering just in itself, just to see yourself represented in any kind of space, and a dance space particularly, and just kind of trying to not really leave a lot of room for particularly gender stereotypes, but really just any kind of norms that might make people feel excluded, and just teach from a lens of there aren't even any expectations to start with, so you won't even consider that you're doing something unexpected, or things that would feel hard.
And I do feel like, I mean, when I witness you teach, and I've seen you teach quite a bit, it's like what I really see is you're just showing up as that. You know, you're holding the space, you're not controlling the space, which is like the first thing I think a really good teacher does, is they kind of like hold a little bit of a container, but it's not all that obvious. And then you're showing up as who you are, and that allows them to show up as who they are. And you really don't dominate the space like a lot of teachers do. Mm-hmm. And I, you know, of course, I witnessed myself doing that domination in the space. It's really easy to slip into because you're trying to teach them something, right?
Totally.
And what I see in your classes is just like, it's like a hang sesh. It's so cool.
Yeah. And I also, awesome. I think like, oh, thanks for saying that. I think what I also try to do, which kind of builds off of what you were just saying, is I also just ask them. I think a lot of teachers come in being like, this is what we're learning because this is what I think you need to learn. And I think I also try to give them a lot of control over the class of like, what are we needing? What is up? Mm-hmm. What feels like you want to work on? Are we even feeling like dancing today? You know, people come into class and immediately I'm like, oh, the energy is low. Let's just see if we can get people smiling a little bit, even if that's, but also if you want to have a bad day, you have a bad day. That's also valid and fair. And I think just like bringing them into the conversation also makes it kind of feel like that hang session of just like, what do you want this hour to be? Cool, because we're creating it together. It also makes people genuinely feel like it's their space, which it is, and it's meant to be crafted for them. And I think that kind of allows for there to not feel like there's a right or wrong thing to even need, where it's just kind of like, yeah, great, cool, let's do that next. I heard you, let's do that next. And then and just kind of have it be something that we build together. And I think that same kind of concept of the more relaxed and comfortable people are, the more they will be present and want to be learning, versus the more stressed they are, they're also not really going to learn very much because they're just in this like fight or flight mode all class, which is the opposite.
Yeah, you can't learn in that freaked out space. I love hearing how non-hierarchical you are and intentional you are with building your communities. And you also do something called a community fund. Can you explain to us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, totally. That came out of a few kind of different maybe gaps also that I was seeing. I think particularly for traditional bachata, this community fund is really important because it kind of serves two purposes. I think as we are seeing this rise in awareness around traditional bachata, particularly from sensual bachata or modern bachata dancers, I think there's been this interest in supporting traditional bachata, but not knowing how. I get pretty endless messages and people coming up to me saying, "Oh, I'm so happy that you're teaching traditional bachata, but I wish I could come to your classes, but I have something else that day." But I'm just like so eager and excited that you're here teaching traditional bachata. So I think what's been really cool from a lot of sensual and modern dancers is that they want to uplift and support more traditional bachata instruction. So one part of this community fund was to create that, okay, you can't come to class, contribute to the fund. That's a way for you to still be able to support the community, even if you're not able to come in person. It gives you a way to pretty tangibly support the sustainability of these socials, these events, this instruction, without necessarily needing to be there every single class, because it's always hard to get people to come to class regardless. People, there you got 100 options every single night of things you can do, and it's not always going to be showing up to class, but just having an outlet for people to contribute to just keep that sustainability, and then using that fund to make the events and classes donation based, which allows for the financial barrier to be removed to attend class. And so even before the community fund, all classes that I would run outside of, being an employee of a studio, classes that I would just run on my own, would always have a sliding scale option, which I think a lot of instructors are starting to do, which is really great. And this kind of helps keep the sustainability from, my perspective of being able to still sustain myself and hold these classes while also not having it be a financial barrier for folks who want to come to class. And so kind of solving a couple problems at once for people who want to support traditional bachata can. I feel sustained enough to be able to continuously run events and socials and classes without burning out. And students who want to come to class and have a financial barrier now don't have that barrier anymore. So it was kind of this solution of a lot of different things that I was seeing to kind of help keep some of these classes, at least the ones that, I'm responsible for, that I get to kind of dictate how they run, just really open and accessible for anybody who wanted to come.
Nice. That's amazing. You had said at some point too, maybe it was in our talks as we were kind of getting ready to record this, is about having it help the exchange between different types of bachata dancers as well. Is that right?
Yeah, totally. So a lot of it is kind of having this space where I think there's a lot of sensual and modern dancers who want more traditional bachata to exist. They want more traditional bachata instruction to exist. And a lot of times, which is kind of an added layer in the bachata community, is just really realistically, there's a lot of sensual bachata dancers who want traditional bachata to exist as a way to further their sensual bachata dancing.
Right.
So we see that pretty often, and that is a reality in a lot of communities where people, want to come learn some footwork that they can use in their sensual bachata dancing. And so something I try to, advocate for in things like this fund and others is that's okay, and that's a choice. And also I would encourage you to learn this dance as its own dance form and participate in it if you want to, as opposed to only using it to benefit parts of a different dance. And I think that's why I'm also really passionate about holding traditional like specific socials or classes and not having everything blend all the time, because it can be really easy for it to be diminished into a dance form that it is not if it starts to like fuse too much on top of already fused dances. And so wanting to kind of create those spaces that are more intentional about preserving the dance as it is and not necessarily needing to use it for something else or use it for the improvement of a different dance. And so I think having members of the sensual and modern bachata community contribute to the community fund is a nice way for them to support the preservation of traditional bachata, particularly in Seattle, where the level and amount of instruction is quite low. And so wanting to at least sustain what we have going on right now.
That's awesome. Hell yeah. That's so cool. I want to kind of bring it home a little bit. If you're in Seattle, first of all, come take one of Yaz's class. Yaz is, you can find their information. I think you can correct me, but your Instagram is yaz.dances at yaz.dances.
Yep.
And there's a link tree on her page and you can find where she teaches. So definitely take a class. And anything else you want to like quickly promo for us? Like, what are you up to?
Ooh, I am trying to figure out what's next. I think with some of my own classes, I think it's been really cool to have kind of the opportunity to just trial a lot of different classes and see again what it is that people want. And so I think I'm always trying to build classes based on what people are looking for and to kind of fill those gaps that we've been talking about. So I'm looking into just kind of different structures that might work for people, whether that's more footwork classes or whether that's a lot of like role rotation classes, which I've done a bit in the past too, and wanting to kind of find different opportunities wherever they might be of, wherever folks are being like, oh, I wish there was this kind of class, or I would love to take a class like this. And I think trying to support those students looking for something, whether that's in traditional bachata or another style of dance, but just from maybe a different perspective or lens. So it's in the works for next year. Some
Love
new
it.
offerings,
Cool.
I'm hoping.
Exciting.
Super exciting. Well, keep your ears to the ground for what's next. I want to just thank you so much for being here with us. It's been fun, and it makes me want to dance more traditional, obviously.
Yeah. Thank you
Yasmeen.
both so much for having me.
Yeah, it definitely makes me just want to like come hang in one of your hang sesh classes. That just sounds like a great vibe.
Please, anytime.
Oh, man. Well, I guess that's it for today. Lou, should we take it on out of here?
Yeah, let's go. Okay. So if you want to leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform, we'd love that.
Absolutely. Whatever that may be, you could consider canceling Spotify.
We just canceled our Spotify right before we recorded this. So yeah, so maybe don't review us on Spotify. Find a new podcasting platform like I'll be doing this sometime this week.
Absolutely. That's on my list of to-dos this week. And even though we are also divested from everyone's society-destroying social media app, Instagram, you can still find our profile there at degender_dance.
And then you can send any love letter suggestions or any other hate mail to degenderdance@gmail.com.
And thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Yasmeen. Thanks, everybody.
Rock,
Bye.
All right. Bye.
rock step, triple step. Ooh, ah, jazz hands.